Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Ammar, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to have Tammy Dowley Blackman, the founder and CEO of Tammy Dowley Blackman Group. This is a firm dedicated to galvanizing leadership across various sectors. With over 2 decades of experience, Tammy has been instrumental in developing leaders through her company's three brands, TBD Strategic Advisory, Looking Forward Lab, and Cooper plus Lowe. Tammy, welcome to Founders Future.
Thank you, Mark. Pleased to be here. Pleasure. Thank you.
I'm excited to dive in. I always like to start from the beginning. So give us your Spider-Man origin story, so to speak, or take us back to before you started the company. What made you decide to start it, and what problems were you looking to solve in the marketplace?
Thank you for that question. It's actually not a one I've actually had put that way. The Spider-Man origin story. I like that. I started my career like a lot of people, and I always reference this, particularly given the work I do now around Gen Z and intergenerational, is reminding those who are supervisors, managers, hiring that those who are coming into the workforce are just like any of us were, and that you're trying to figure it all out. And I say all that to say that for me, it was I got a feel for that I liked building things, but I didn't know exactly what that meant. And so I tried a variety of things. I started my career at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, which is the oldest performing arts institution in the country. But I actually have no performing arts background. I'm not an arts major in college, but it was a sense that it would be a great opportunity to learn. And it was transformative. It actually was so central to so much of what I continue to do now. I had this incredible mentor there, a woman by the name of Mickey Shepard, who really gave us as a small team a chance to do everything. And in that, it taught me about how I wanted to manage in the future. Fast forward, I ended up getting a graduate degree, and then from there decided that I wanted to do some work in higher education. And then I started really getting clear about it because then I realized that I did like building things, but I also wanted to build things that created access. So it was getting even more specific, and then became a CEO of nonprofits. And then from there, started my first company 21 years ago that was to support access. And access meant lots of things: access for women leaders, access for those who are differently abled, access for those who may not have the economic background to be able to pay for great programming, access for those who wanted to try and learn new things. But that was just really important for me to do that work and get that time to play around with that and understand that I did like building things, understanding it was about access. And then that's really defined a lot of the work I've done and that my company does, even though we work across corporate, government, nonprofit, and philanthropic. It is always about how do we connect people, how do we create access, and how are we helping people learn so they can thrive as leaders. So a little bit of
Yeah,
that origin story.
that's awesome. Why is access such a big focal point, such a big focus for you?
It really, again, goes back to that origin story in that there were so many things that I did not have growing up. I grew up incredibly poor, parents who had an eighth grade education. My mother went back and got her GED, and they really emphasized education.
Wow.
And it was access programs that provided me a chance. And that's why it's so hard to see so many things in
Wow.
this current political landscape trying to end programs that create access. And so, whether it's programs around educational attainment or around healthcare, housing, all of those things made it possible for me to be able to understand that I could get a great education, that I could go on and try new things, and it didn't have anything to do with so what I was had been poor. That didn't have to define me,
Yeah.
and so I think it just really just is so important to me because I experienced it.
I love that so much. And that's a big thing because you wouldn't be the woman you are today if it wasn't for those
That's
experiences.
exactly right. That's exactly right. I wish my family didn't have to struggle, but I certainly am really thankful that there were people who saw that, again, your zip code shouldn't define who you are and what you get to be and what you get to do, and created opportunities for me. And I had them all along the way through my public schools and summer programs that were all educationally focused, but about creating access for a lot of different people. And I benefited tremendously from it.
Yeah. Help us understand today your company. What is the primary focus? Because you mentioned corporations, nonprofits.
Mhm.
Who's the primary like avatar that you work with, or maybe a suite of avatars? And what are the primary
Yeah.
things?
For us, it really is. It's leaders across the organization, so it does not have to be your senior C-suite. We certainly work with many of those leaders and enjoy that because they're trying to, again, build something and they're trying to create space for others to be at the table to help them think through what's going to matter, how to solve a problem. So we enjoy working with those C-suite leaders. But this is really about leaders across. And so, again, the work around Gen Z, those who are just entering the workforce, you've got your oldest Gen Zers are about 29, 30 now and have been in the workforce since 2018. And it's expected by 2030, we'll have about 30% of our workforce would be Gen Z. So we're just as excited about those folks and their leadership development and what does that look like. And we're taking and trying to remind that there are tools, things that we did for those who are of a different era in terms of their own development. But some of those tools can't wait until you're 15 years in your career. Some of those things we really need to bring forward for Gen Z as they're just entering their career. Executive coaching, really doubling down on professional development,
Mm,
particularly because so many Gen Zers have lived in a hybrid world or working in a hybrid world or working completely remote. So trying to double down on these things that may feel like soft skills, but they're just as important, but are helping people to think through what their leadership style is really important. So across the spectrum of leaders, again, across corporate, government, nonprofit, and philanthropic, but we're not just focused on those who are seasoned in their career. We're looking across the companies, the organizations, to how we think about leadership and
yeah.
teaching leadership.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot because I talk to a lot of executive coaches and they typically focus on the founders, the C-suite.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And to me, it feels like the earlier you can get to them, the better the habits you will ingrain in them.
That's
And
right.
therefore, when they get to those higher senior positions, a lot of these things will just be second nature.
That's
It'll just
right.
be who you are. And
Right.
I think it makes more sense to do it that way because you're actually having a longer term impact on the organization,
That's right.
from my eyes.
That's right. And we have to think about too, again, there's a natural cycle. People will come into organizations, and this is not just about age or how long you've been in your career, just simply about they come and you may be there for a certain number of years and move on. You want everyone to learn and to be able to understand the entirety of the organization so that everyone can pick up and be able to take on things and challenges as some people exit out, go to a next job, go to graduate school, retire, whatever that next piece in the life cycle might be. So you need to constantly be cultivating that pipeline of leaders of those who are going to step in next. So you're not left with big problems you're trying to solve and you have no one there because you've not invested in them in any way. So we really think of it as an investment and have really tried to help the teams that we work with not only to think about it that way, but to model it and to actually help them to activate it in that way.
Um, I have two questions that just came to mind. The first one, is it the organizations that are paying for this type of service? And then the second one, help the listeners understand what does the client journey look like? Let's say I'm one of these leaders in the organization, you step in, and what does that actually look like in terms of
Mhm.
is it individual coaching, group coaching, in person, digital? Walk me through the client journey.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah, great. And again, it's all very different. We might be working with a healthcare entity, we might be working with a philanthropic institution, we might be working with a tech company. It could be all very different. But what is centered in all of them is that they are trying to figure out how to solve problems. I
sense.
haven't found one yet that isn't trying to solve a problem. Their problems might be different, their workforce might be different, where they do their work, so forth, the sector, but they're trying to solve a problem. And so part of what we like to do when we go in, and that's what's given us longevity, when people, we did some market analysis a few years ago, we were just wondering why did people routinely come to our company and why did they select us over and over? And we didn't
Mm,
want to have asked the question. We wanted it to be completely from their perspective, having someone who doesn't know us in any intimate way to be able to ask the questions. And what was interesting, what came back, they said to us is that they really appreciated that, yes, I am the lead of this company, but we have other team members. But they appreciate that the ethos of the company is that we sat around the table in all different ways. So whether it's me having served as a board president of a nonprofit for 6 years, but on that board for 9 years, or whether it's that team members have been, they've gone up the ladder in terms of they've been managers, directors, vice presidents, they appreciated that. But they also appreciated that we understood the kinds of questions to ask, that we didn't jump in and just assume. We actually asked questions and really tried to get to know them. So that's part of the client journey, is the time we spend. And people said that was meaningful to them. And that we also tried to make sure that there were a lot of different people and perspectives around the table. Again, going back to that, we look across the organization, not just to those who are in charge, who founded, or C-suite, but we're asking a lot of different people. And that was very telling. It's just what we do and have been doing instinctively, but it was really interesting to hear that fed back to us. That was vital. That's why they actually select our company to take on these big projects that we've taken on, and that why so many of our clients have come back to us. We've got clients we've worked with multiple times over 5, 6, 10, 15 years. And it's really a testament that we're really proud of and really thankful. So when they come and they ask us to join them, we are trying to figure out what that problem is. And then we're trying to figure out how much time they have, not just their resources in terms of financial capital, but actual human capital to invest in this, because that gives us a sense of how much we can do. We don't want to set anyone up for failure. And so we want to ask honestly what they have available, so we can actually build a bridge to from their current state, what is going on for them now, to the future state of what they'd like, but to do it in a way that's, I always say, is reasonable and feasible. So we ask them to honestly say what they have available, so we don't set anyone up for failure. And then we spend time thinking about what it's going to cost them, again, not just financially, what it's going to cost them, not only in time, but what does it look like in terms of, do they need to redeploy any kind of current resources? Do they actually need to hire differently? Do they need to do some retraining of current team members? So what's there? We're always thinking of this from an asset point of view and not any kind of liability. There's certainly, all of us, we have things we do well and things we don't do well, but we're always trying to ask from the point of actually what's the assets, so we can utilize what you have, and then we can figure out what the gaps are and think about what we need to add. And so by asking those questions, creating a work plan for that. The other thing that they like a great deal of the work we do is we create a dashboard. Nothing fancy, certainly a term came out of corporate. Many people use it, but our clients like it because in real time, we're teaching them to actually to quickly be ready to tweak, to problem solve. So to not be rigid and to say, this is how we're going to do it and the only way we're going to do it. But in real time, we might have to make a different decision, and we're actually modeling that for them. And what we love is that clients say that long after we have finished the project for them, they're tools that we leave them with that they're still using. So we invest that in asking the questions. We really think about first that problem they want to solve, asking the questions, really thinking about honestly what resources, what assets they have, then thinking about how we close the gap. And then we're working with them by modeling what it looks like to actually do the work collaboratively, is really part of the journey for whether it's, again, corporate, government, nonprofit, or philanthropic. And all the projects are very different, which we're really fortunate. We don't do one kind of project.
Yeah, yeah. Keeps it interesting that way.
Yeah, it does.
I appreciate you answering that so extensively and so thoroughly. I'm curious, are you involved yourself with each single client, or are there systems in place where maybe there's other people that kind of handle certain aspects of it?
So initially, when the company first started, and I think this is an important context for those who are founders, you could actually start a company one way and pivot and realize you wanted to grow into something different. And that's what happened for me. I started a small company that was really based on my lifestyle at the time. A new mom, I wanted to be a mom, and so I loved being a CEO of nonprofits, but realized that it was actually going to keep me away from being able to be the mom I wanted to be. So by actually starting the company, it wasn't that I was going to work less; I could just work differently, and I could really be in control of how I worked. So that was one way, and that was a way for the first 13 years of my company. And then I decided that now I could go bigger, I could go national, and not for because I had to. I could have continued to do the work in which I did it in that founding way, which was completely wonderful, energizing. I was really involved, engaged, and I was doing all the work, all the element of the work with clients then. But then decided I had an opportunity to grow a bigger company. So the new company acquired that original company. And now that's where we started building out a team. So we'd already built systems. So I had standard operating procedures, even if overwhelmingly I was doing them and had some consultants that work with me. One of the things, two of the things I always had was those things around accounting and legal and those things. Then I go and build a bigger company, and now we've got more people. We've got bigger standard operating procedures. Now we've got an operations manager. You've got an executive assistant. We always work remotely. So we always had to have good communication and productivity and the systems that would help us to be able to manage our work, the kind of checklist. We know when we start a project, we've got to do these 10 things. We know at the point of in the middle of the project, we need to be at this point and be able to report out in this way, and so on. And then we've continued to tweak those systems over time as we've continued to grow. And then over years, we added a new business development manager and then a much more extensive operations manager, a social media team added along the way as we needed. I didn't start this assuming I needed all of those things. And none of it has ever been for us about bells and whistles. It's always been what's driven our growth. It's been because in response to what kinds of requests we've gotten from our clients and from the sectors we work with. And that's how we've continued to grow in a way that's been, again, it's proactive in the sense that we're thinking, we're looking, we're trying to see trends, but we are not building things that just seem great. We wait to see,
Mhm.
we're really building it based on the information that we're taking in
Yeah,
and trends about what our sectors need. And so
for
that's how we've
sure.
grown.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you're looking for the demand and
Yeah,
then filling that demand accordingly.
that's
I
right.
like the point about pivoting and not being afraid to switch how the company
Hmm.
operates. Help us understand, how do you generate leads?
hmm So that's something that we've done differently in the last 5 years. For the first 13 years of my business, really 14 years of my business, it was referral. And again, we were just very fortunate. And part of that was because I had come out of being a CEO of two really big nonprofits. I had built a base of work, and particularly in the Boston, Cambridge, New England area, and had a lot of contacts there. And so we really did do a lot of our work off referral, of repeat clients, and it was wonderful in that way. And then about 2019, excuse me, when I started the new company that acquired the smaller company, I said I really wanted to try to see what else we could do in growth and what growth would look like. And that meant now responding to RFPs that where we didn't have any contact, researching, generating our own leads. And so then over the next couple of years, between about 2019 and 2024, even just very recently, we did it that way. And that I was really doing a lot of the new business development. We were still getting great work from referrals, but now we were also putting a national presence. And we did that in a couple of ways in terms of getting ourselves put in some databases, starting to really reach out to colleagues across the country. I've always been great about networking and building relationships, but it was really about me being able to give people information and sharing information. And now I realize that it could also be about me trying to just learn about what other opportunities were out there. And then finally, a year ago, we added a new business development manager. So I would argue for my company, we did it much later than many other founders. And Edgar Cannon, who's our new business development manager, really now has put together a CRM, is doing the kind of email campaigns, thinking about what it looks like for us to have paid campaigns through LinkedIn or Pinterest or others. And we built out a much more significant social media presence, the way
Yeah.
in which we are trying to respond and to be able to drive business to the website or to our contact and to during speaking. All of those things now have come as a secondary to that. But having a new business development manager has really helped to build the systems that I was always interested in, understood why they were important. Again, but it's so hard to be one person trying to do all those things,
Smart.
and
Yeah,
you
yeah.
need to add team members. And so wonderfully, we've been able to add those team members.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's good that you're steering in that way, because having a solid digital footprint in today's economy and today's
Hmm.
marketplace, regardless of what business you're in, I don't care who it is. Some people will say it doesn't matter for certain sectors, but I completely disagree. I think having some sort of social media presence will only benefit the company. So I love that you're moving in that
Hmm.
direction.
Yeah.
Help us understand the sales process. So if somebody comes in as a lead, what are the different steps that they go through to become a client?
So what happens is, depending upon how they've come to us, so say you come to us as a referral, that can be a very different process. It might be that it's right to me because you've come from a referral from one of our existing corporate clients or existing philanthropic sector clients. And so then we've been introduced and we pick that up. I literally had one of those just come in today in an email. Someone did an introduction. So that company has a request for proposals, an RFP that's been put out, but we have not seen that, did not see that, but a colleague saw it thought and said, I think this would be a great fit. I want to do an introduction, does an introduction to the CEO of that company. And so we are not bypassing the RFP. We'll have to respond to it, but we've got a direct connection to, and they'll be looking for our proposal because we've met, and I get some insight about what their problem is that you're trying to solve, and not just what's on the piece of paper on the RFP. So that could be one. Others come in through Edgar. So Edgar is doing sourcing, research. He's doing those email campaigns, as I mentioned. He's on LinkedIn. He's sharing information, updates. He's sending videos of work that we've done or speaking engagements or something I've written or a summary. We've started doing a series around what we called our green case study series, and green being, yes, environmentally conscious, but green being the idea for signals growth and expansion. And so we would do projects we've completed, we would do a segment on those, and he could share those as a video clip, as a trailer, or he can talk about those. So it can be, that's a way that people come in. So through the RFP research that he's doing, but also through the email campaigns that he's generated over time and built contacts and relationships with us. So they both
Yeah,
work really well. They're different. And at some point they converge and they become the same process. It's just a matter of they're different when they first come in. But eventually it's we may need to write a proposal. It's eventually you need to have a conversation, the CEO to the CEO or the primary contact. Eventually we need to come to some agreement around that scope of work and deliverables and time frame and contracting.
yeah,
And then the contracting process, this is the same once it goes into contracting in terms of our systems and accounting and what they send and how they segment it and schedule it for payment. All those things become the same. It's just at the very beginning, it might come through a different funnel.
for sure. Just depending on how they came in through the door. That makes
Yeah,
perfect sense.
yeah.
What's your vision? Where do you want to see the company, let's say in 12 months' time?
So for the again, we've got these brands under Tammy Dowley Blackman Group, and one of the brands is just split off just a few weeks ago, and now will be a separate entity and will be a full launch of a separate company, and that's Cooper and Lowe. But under Tammy Dowley Blackman Group will remain the TDB Group Strategic Advisory and Looking Forward Lab. The strategic TDB Group Strategic Advisory works only on the consulting, the management consulting, again across all the sectors: corporate, government, nonprofit, and philanthropic. And the only reason we created Looking Forward Lab as a singular, it really meshes over in the management consulting, but we wanted to name that there was something particular and interesting and different and innovative about Gen Z. And so this is where we do a lot of that learning and development work for Gen
Mm,
Z, where we're creating those professional development opportunities, where we're writing about Gen Z, talking about what it means to have Gen Z in the workforce. So again, much of it certainly could be considered management consulting, but we wanted to just call it out so that people would understand this is not business as usual. Gen Z is different in these incredible positive ways, but they are who they are based on because our world is so different and we're going to need them to be very different kinds of leaders. So that work will stay together. And then Cooper and Lowe is going to do something very different, specific to what entrepreneurs need, and are really excited. So there's a different path for each of those companies. TDB Group Strategic Advisory Looking Forward Lab under Tammy Dowley Blackman Group
yeah.
is a company that potentially could be sold, but still in a lot of ways operates like a lifestyle business. It still very much is future forward facing, but it's really linked to me, even in obviously the name. Cooper and Lowe is very different. That company from the very beginning is being set up with an exit set strategy and what it would look like for that company to continue to grow and evolve, but also what it would look like for that company to be sold. So right now we're enjoying both and see what happens. They're both growing. We definitely have not finished growing at Tammy Dowley Blackman Group. We had hoped to do more in the way of federal government work, but of course our landscape is different now here in the US in the federal government, and we still may end up doing some of that, but we'll do more of our state level work and then continue to do the work that we do with nonprofit and philanthropic.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
That was a very enjoyable conversation. I really appreciate
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
time.
Thank you. Thank you. A
What's the best
pleasure.
way for people to get a hold of you?
The best way is they can be in touch through our website, which is www.tammy, Tammy, D as in David, B as in boy.com. Everything they need is there, including further contact, phone numbers, emails. But that's the best way is to go through the website. And again, it's tammydb.com. And we're pleased that we are able to have built a website that has all the information they need right there.
Awesome. So that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future.
Yeah.
Again, thank you so much, Tammy, for sharing your journey and your insights with us today.
Ammar, thank you. Thank you. A real pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
And thank you for your great work. It's really
thank
inspiring.
you. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're looking to scale your business and enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to discover how we can support your growth journey. Until then, keep on climbing.